What's up, everybody? This is Jordan from Wednesday Night Warhammer with another Tyranids Tactics video. This week's Tactics video is how to tactfully use your wallet and your money when you're trying to upgrade your combat patrol for Tyranids up to a 1,000 point marker. So I'm going to go through the combat patrol, talk about it a little bit more. I went in depth in a different video. If you haven't checked that out, I would take a look at it if you could. And I'm going to give some suggestions on how I would upgrade combat patrol to fit a 1,000 point game in Warhammer 40k. So let's take a look. Just a little bit of a refresher. This is the contents of our new combat patrol for Tyranids. It will include a Parasite of Mortrex as our character, a 10-man Gene Stealer squad, Tyrant Guard / Hive Guard. All detachments we will be making them as a Tyrant Guard instead of a Hive Guard, just for our purposes. Then a Biovore or a Pyrovore. Every single list that I will be showing in this video will be making it as a Biovore, since it is definitely one of the top staples for Tyranids right now. And if you wrap all of that together, it's going to be 360 points if you build with the Tyrant Guard and Biovore. If you build with Hive Guard, I believe it's actually a little bit more expensive. It's 380 points, but yeah. So that's going to be our starting ground for this video, and we'll be adding on to it in order to reach 1,000 points in hopefully the most efficient and collection building way. So talking a little bit about the intentions of this video and some of the guidelines that I'm going to be posing in order to make, I feel like, the transition from the combat patrol box to playing on the table at 1,000 points as easily and as best possible for anybody getting into the hobby or anybody getting into Tyranids. First, we're going to identify which detachments the combat patrol has synergy with, or rather which detachments we need to purchase the least amount of units in order to make somewhat a usable list for that detachment. You know, what's the core support of our combat patrol, and how can we use that moving forward into different detachments? Next, I'm going to try and be as cost efficient as possible. I'm not going to go out there and say immediately buy 3 Exocrines. There you go. There's your 1,000 point invasion fleet list. That's a little bit crazy, and it's not very good for building a collection. In addition, this hobby is expensive. So I would like to give you advice tactically, and also do my best to make so that you're doing purchases that are going to be beneficial financially as well as in the game. And then going forward with that, also our next bullet point is the idea is setting up a newer player with a good collection of pieces. I'm going to do my best to suggest units that you are not only going to be using in one detachment in one specific list. We're not I'm not saying that immediately go out and get like the 18 Tyrant Guard Assimilation Swarm list or whatever, something like that. So we're not hoping to lean into that. We are going to be using the units that come in the box as best as possible, but then also understanding that if you want to upgrade to 2,000 points, maybe 1 or 2 of those units you're not going to use, so we don't want to lean heavily into that. However, for each of these lists, we will be using every single model in the box. I think it would be annoying if I said this is how you upgrade the box, that you don't use half of it. So each of these lists are going to include every single model that is in the box straight away. So it should be a very easy progression without you deleting or removing units because they're not good, or etc. or whatever. It's going to be a somewhat competitive 1,000 point list. I think there might be it's going to be some difficulty in some regards, but I think it's going to be a functioning 1,000 point list that you can use in your games at home or at your local game store. Last but really not least is I'm also going to be taking consideration items that are available online at warhammer.com. I'm not saying things that are maybe just temporarily out of stock or something, but there's going to be a couple of units that are just not included, like Raveners. Raveners haven't even come out as a release, and they might have been included in one of the detachments, or it might have been a really strong case for Subterranean Assault with the Raveners, but they're not included in this video because they just don't exist. In addition, Neurotyrants. Neurotyrants, and I just realized this, are apparently very hard to find. You can only get them in one box that is $112, and that box is not for sale. So that's the idea of where each of these lists came from and the models that I will be suggesting in this video. First detachment we are looking at, I have built an Assimilation Swarm list. And there's a couple of almost every single one of these units in the Combat Patrol actually, to me, kind of screams Assimilation Swarm. You've got the Gene Stealers, who like to be regrowed with a Broodlord, of course, and you can do that in Assimilation Swarm. You have the Parasite of Mortrex, where if you're very, very lucky, it can spawn a Ripper, which that would be sweet. And you have the Tyrant Guard, which like to join a Hive Tyrant and regrow and make your Hive Tyrant incredibly survivable. So my first thought was actually Assimilation Swarm. Seems like a pretty good way to move forward with this Combat Patrol. Also, Assimilation Swarm is sweet. It's a very cool detachment. So let's take a look at what we have going on here. First up, it's going to be a Broodlord, a Hive Tyrant, Parasite of Mortrex, Gargoyles. I love Gargoyles. If you're new to this channel, I'm a huge Gargoyle enjoyer. So there they are, Gargoyles. Biovore, Gene Stealers, a Haruspex, a Psychophage, one Ripper Swarm. We had around 25 points left over, and then Tyrant Guard. So yeah, that's going to be around 382 MSRP for all the boxes that you would need to buy in order to get this, and that's not including Ripper Swarm, because honestly, you could probably just find a 40mm base and then get some bits somewhere and just make a air quote Ripper Swarm, you know. But the boxes you will need to purchase with this are going to be Broodlord, Hive Tyrant, Gargoyles, Haruspex / Exocrine box. I would highly suggest magnetizing your Haruspex and Exocrine so you can swap them out depending on what you want to do. And then a Psychophage. All of those units are very good. And all of those units, you can find them in other detachments as well. I think the only argument is maybe not the Psychophage as much, or even the Haruspex, but both of those units are still being played in Subterranean Assault. There's some fringe play with Psychophage and Vanguard Onslaught as well for the added addition of the AP in combat. But yeah, so this is the first list that we're talking about. If we were to get those units and the Combat Patrol, it's going to be around $552. Now, the reason why I chose these units is you're going to get added synergy for Assimilation Swarm by having the Haruspex and the Psychophage being able to heal the Hive Tyrant attached to the Tyrant Guard, or the Broodlord with Gene Stealers. In addition, I think 1,000 points. Some beef is hard to deal with sometimes. So if you send out a Hive Tyrant, fully melee, and a Haruspex and a Psychophage, that can be a lot to deal with, especially at 1,000 points. The Hive Tyrant is going to be upgraded with Instinctive Defense as his enhancement, so that he can fight first and Heroic with the Tyrant Guard. Seems like a pretty strong combo. And then I feel like the list needs some mission play and some primary scoring or denial. So the Gargoyles definitely really help with that. I think this is an interesting 1,000 point list. It's not too much to get started off with Combat Patrol, but it definitely uses every single piece in the Combat Patrol wisely, and it's going to allow you to grow your collection pretty good. We are being sponsored by Secondhand Geek with this video, but it's also not just a sponsorship. I do want to talk for a second about how you are able to maybe save even more money when looking at different things. Secondhand Geek, of course, is an incredible platform for you to buy and sell miniatures. We have an affiliate link down below, but honestly, it's a really good place. A lot of these lists that I'm going to be talking about, they either have parts of this list created already listed on their website that you'll be able to grab for a pretty steep discount. Like we were talking about the slide before, the Psychophage is going for $60 off Warhammer.com. That's where I'm grabbing all of these prices, just so that everybody's able to get them. That's United States, of course. But on Secondhand Geek, you can get a Psychophage for $25. Like there's several listed right now on Secondhand Geek for just $25. So why would you, like $60, $25? You can get almost an additional unit for the amount of money that you would save by purchasing a Psychophage off of Secondhand Geek. In addition to Hive Tyrant, you can get a Hive Tyrant for $45 off of Secondhand Geek, and easy peasy. So you're saving almost $20 there. In addition, Secondhand Geek always supports local game stores. Every single purchase you make off of Secondhand Geek is going to do a small kickback to other local game stores around the country, around the world, just to help them do the things that they do. The affiliate link is down below. Start shopping. Start saving. Invasion Fleet is next, and it's very, you just probably are going to build Invasion Fleet first, unless you're going to a very specific route in your Tyranid collection. So I'm pretty happy with how this list came up. Let's let's take a look at it. Of course, we're still buying the Broodlord. Again, that's going to be for every single list because we want the Broodlord to be able to join with the Gene Stealers. If you're playing Gene Stealers, more than often than not, you're bringing a Broodlord as well. So the Broodlord's there for $45, of course, off of Warhammer.com. The Hive Tyrant's there at $62. We do have Parasite and Mortrex because he comes in the box. Hormagaunts, which I didn't realize the Hormagaunts are actually $5 more than Gargoyles. You know, maybe people should be playing I'm just kidding. But Hormagaunts are very good, just to control objectives, of course, do some secondaries, and be annoying for your opponent. Biowar, Gene Stealers from the box, of course. One Lictor. I think everybody needs to have at least 1 or 2 Lictors in the Tyranid collection. They're very, very good. A Tyrannifex. I love Tyrannifexes. I think Tyrannifexes are one of the best models to buy right now because they're very versatile. I'm pretty much always fitting mine out with a Rupture Cannon. It's the best way to be right now in the meta, especially with all the Knights. But the Acid Spray is also good, and they're fairly easy to magnetize if you're up for the challenge. Then Tyrant Guard, because we have Tyrant Guard in the box, so we might as well use them. This is only $276 MSRP when you put everything together, which is honestly the cheapest list, I think, out of this entire video. And I think all of those units you will be using later on in your collection. None of those units are units that you're going to maybe play with this list for a little bit and then, oh man, this unit just kind of stinks. No, they're all good. And I think this is a strong, well-rounded 1,000 point list, of course. And then if we are adding the Combat Patrol with that, it's $446 for the entire list. That's a lot of money, in just general terms. But in Warhammer terms, for a 1,000 point list, that's pretty good. That's honestly not too bad. This list does a couple of things with the Tyrannifex, just taking out some anti-tank. Tyrant Guard being pretty sturdy. Of course, if you pop 5 of Feel No Pain with the Tyrant Guard and the Hive Tyrant, they are very, very annoying to take care of. Lictor is going to infiltrate and do Lictor things. I love those guys. They're so, so good. Gene Stealers are going to be probably your big punching unit in this list. They're very strong. And with some of the buffs that Invasion Fleet offers, they can take their damage up to 11. Hormagaunts, they're going to do Hormagaunt things and take over objectives and everything like that. And the Parasite and Mortrex, he's going to play almost as your second Lictor. Have him go out. Maybe he deep strikes onto an objective. Maybe he deep strikes and scores you a secondary or something. But he's a little tricksy. I almost always would not charge it with him. But it's cool. Let me know what you think about this list. I think it's pretty good. Vanguard Onslaught. Vanguard Onslaught is one of my favorite detachments, right up there with Subterranean Assault. So I think this is my favorite list out of the 3. It's still pretty affordable, honestly, when you consider all of the units you're getting from the Combat Patrol, and I still feel like it uses all of the units in a very interesting way. So the list is 2 Broodlords. You'll have to buy both of them. Of course, a Winged Hive Tyrant. I was trying to squeeze in a Hive Tyrant, but it's just kind of awkward with the Tyrant Guard and Vanguard Onslaught. And of course, if you're thinking in general terms of a 1,000 point army list, I do think Hive Tyrants a lot of times don't make the cut. However, in this video, I'm suggesting you get a Hive Tyrant in every single one of these lists, because if you have an additional torso, then you can make both variants of the Hive Tyrant, as that way you're being very cost efficient. And then if you're building to 2,000 points, almost 85% of any list you write is going to include a Hive Tyrant of some kind. So I think it's very important to have in your collection. So the Winged Tyrant right there. And then you have Parasite and Mortrex. You have Hormagaunts again, another really good buy. I love the Sculpts, and they're also very good in the game. They actually make a really good use of Vanguard Onslaught because they can advance and charge just because of the datasheet roll, and they can fall back and charge with Vanguard Onslaught too. So if they get stuck in combat and they kill something, or they get tied up or whatever, then they're still able to activate, which is kind of cool. Then you have 2 Gene Stealer squads. You'll have to buy one, of course, $58. They're just good. Vanguard Onslaught, they advance and charge, right? They fall back and charge. They're kind of durable, with -1 hit from the Broodlord in combat and 5 up invuln all the time. Definitely really helps them. Then a Lictor for $52. You can find multiple Lictors for $40 on Secondhand Geek if you're interested in the Hive Guard. Now, I thought quite a bit about how we could best use the Tyrant Guard in coming out of the Combat Patrol. And I think Vanguard's kind of downfall, and I think it would definitely be apparent in 1,000 points, is just like dealing with tanks and transports. And if you had Hive Guard to maybe possibly pop a Rhino. It might be kind of tough for just a 3-man Hive Guard squad to do it, but that could be very interesting. And they definitely could do chip damage. You know, if you combo a Hive Guard as well as a Lictor going into a Rhino, there's a non-zero chance that that Rhino pops, and then your Gene Stealers can eat all the good bits inside. Seems good, right? Wrapping all of those units together, you will need to buy 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units, the Lictor, Gene Stealers, Hormagaunts, Hive Tyrant, and 2 Broodlords, and that's going to be around $314 MSRP at the time that I'm recording this video, and Warhammer.com for those prices. And it's going to be $484, including the Combat Patrol. So again, under $500 for an 1,000 point army list. Seems pretty interesting. The Hive Guard, this is the only time where it's kind of like an awkward pick. It's probably not the most incredible pick for this detachment, but I do think Hive Guard are seeing quite a bit of play right now in Subterranean Assault. So this could be a thing where you're building them as Hive Guard, and then maybe when you get some more units and you're able to go into Subterranean Assault, when Raveners get released or something like that, then there's a good chance that you will want the Hive Guard, and then maybe get more and expand that to a 6-man squad. But yeah, let me know what you think about this Vanguard Onslaught list. I think this is my favorite list out of the 3 that I've included in this video. I just like running and advancing and charging people. It's a good time. All right, what do you think? You know, do you think that these lists are good to start? If you're a newer player, do you have any more questions? Please include them in the comments below, and I'd be eager to answer them. This is one of my favorite topics, is, you know, trying to get a very clear method on how newer players can expand their collection in a cost-efficient way while also being competitively efficient. Is there a detachment that you think could fit that I did not include? Let me know. If you have a list that you think would be cool to expand from the Combat Patrol, and include it in the comments. I would be really interested to see where everybody takes from that. Again, there's no Raveners, no Neurotyrant. I think Neurotyrant is a mainstay of the Tyranid army, but apparently it's very hard to find right now, which is a little frustrating. And the same thing with Raveners. I think Raveners are very good, especially if you're playing Subterranean Assault or Vanguard Onslaught. I could see Raveners coming out pretty soon on the Warhammer store, and then that might change things depending on how much they price them. So they could become a good pick, you know. And again, Hive Guard are good in Subterranean Assault. I'd be interested to see how they do in that Vanguard Onslaught list that I included over there. So they might be like a good pick. Who knows if the meta swings really hard the other way and we don't have a whole lot of really heavily armored units and vehicles and stuff, then Hive Guard, of course, are not going to be a great pick. But who knows? It could be just a mainstay of the meta for the rest of the edition. I don't know. And last but probably the most important is magnetize if you can. I've magnetized a lot of my units just so they can be versatile. A lot of our kits, you can build 2 different units, and a lot of our kits are also very easy to magnetize. Things like the Exocrine, Harspex, and the Tyranifex with its different guns, as well as the Hive Tyrant, all pretty simple to magnetize. There's a lot of videos online on YouTube on how to do that to help yourself out. In addition, find an extra torso for the Hive Tyrant. A lot of people like Maelstrom Gaming and all of his content. He also has an online Etsy store where he provides those Hive Tyrant torsos. So go support Maelstrom Gaming, and of course, check out their extra torsos if you're needing that in order to get a little bit more efficiency out of your Hive Tyrant box. All right, everybody, that is it for today's video. Let me know what you think. I'm debating, honestly, doing more videos like this on all of the Combat Patrols, because I know we're mostly Tyranid focus based, but one of my passions in the hobby is trying to figure out the best way to get bang for your buck. You know, it's an expensive hobby. So if there's anything that I can do to kind of like plan out and maybe help people get into the hobby and stay competitive as well, I'm very excited to do that. Check out our affiliate link down below with Secondhand Geek. Look at all of their stuff. If you're trying to get some more units, if you're trying to start a new army, honestly, they're the first place that I'm starting to look right now too, because they're very good and they support local game stores. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend, and I'll see you later. Bye.